In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome to After the Game. I'm your host, Josh Baker, along today with defending state champion Coach Tom Lucas from St. John's Country Day. Welcome, Coach.
Hey, thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
So I know you've heard the podcast in the past. Listen to Coach Pickett from St. John's, and you kind of know how this thing goes. But let's talk about the player, Coach Lucas, the young player out of Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah, went to Forest High School, which doesn't exist anymore. Not that good, to be honest with you. Was surrounded by some really good players back in the day. High school baseball was kind of a lot smaller. The private schools and public schools to me were kind of equal back then. Sandalwood and some of those teams they had in the 80s. I graduated in the 90s. And so there was really good baseball, but was a PO. Rusty Kellum, who's over at Bishop Snyder, me and him were on the same team. We were kind of the staff of that team. Andre Ayu, I don't know if you know him. He's been with JSO. Now he's the emergency operations commander for Jacksonville right now. He was my catcher. But we had a pretty good squad. We got ranked in the state.
Who was coaching that squad?
So that was Marty Lee, the football coach at First Coast High School.
Marty's been on the show.
Yeah, that was his first year as a varsity baseball coach in our area, and he coached baseball. Yep. And then he left that next year and took the First Coast High School football job, and then the rest is history with him. So, he coached me that year. The year before, he was our assistant coach with Fred Gurgis as our head coach. So that was a long time ago. Went to Santa Fe and didn't work out. I was a knucklehead, tore up my knee my first year, tore up my shoulder my second year, never really got out of the fall, played in the fall, and that was about it. And then, that was it for me in baseball. That's what it seemed like. That's kind of, got married young, had a daughter, became a girl dad, and just kind of, she wasn't a softball player, pushed her into golf, pushed her into volleyball. And so I just, embraced all of that. So.
Well, and that's what I love about your story, because it's so different than your standard coach story. We've had guys on here, Coach Boswell, that just, went straight from pro ball to coaching and then into high school coaching and, never quit. Yours, you had a family, had a wife, had a daughter, spent time with her, was the dad, like you said, did the girl dad stuff, started a business, went and did life, and then fell back to baseball.
Yeah, coaching was probably the farthest thing from me. I did it 1 year when I came back from college. I was a JV baseball coach at Forest High School. Really didn't enjoy it. And I needed to make money. I was married with a kid, and so I starting businesses, and got pulled into it so late. She was a senior in high school, and I had a buddy, Dustin James, who's now the principal at Lakeside Junior High. He had gotten the job over at Wilkerson, and they needed a baseball coach. Wilkerson Middle School, way out in Clay County. And came up to me and goes, "Man, you played baseball. I know you know baseball. And could you mind just coming out and helping me out? I can't pay you." And I talked to my wife, and it's like, my owning your own business, I was pretty flexible. I was like, yeah, I'll go out there and just kind of see what it's like. I can't come out there every day, one of those type of things. And really enjoyed it, really enjoyed it. And from there, Tracy Livingston at St. John's found out that I'm driving all the way out to Wilkerson, and they needed a pitching coach. They had a player by the name of Luke Dill, who was a really good pitcher, 6'5", righty, ended up going to Daytona State. She goes, "Man, if you're driving all the way out there, why don't you stay here? You're on campus. Brooke was playing, 3 sports at that time. I think they had talked her into playing softball. You could watch her a little bit." And so I said, all right, I'll try it. And so that's how I got into it. Became the pitching coach there and did that for 2 years. And the head coach, which was Mike Hilliard, was going to step down, and he had done it for 30 years or something like that. And she approached me, asked me if I'd be interested in it. And I'm kind of an all-in. Like if I'm gonna put my name on it, like it's going to be me. It's going to represent me. And so I had a long conversation with her, like, well, this is going to be different if I do this. Like it's, we'd played some teams, but we weren't playing Bowles, we weren't playing Trinity and Clay, and we were a lower level high school program. I think at that time we were 2A and in a district with a bunch of really small private schools, and I wanted to play really good baseball. At that point, I started attending a lot of the high school games, and I'd went to a Clay Fleming game and got to watch that. I was like, man, I want to be a part of stuff like this.
Right.
These type of games. If I do this, and so, just the school embraced it. Yeah, if pick what Pickett's doing, I said that's what I want to do.
Right.
And that's kind of the model. I think we can do that with baseball here.
And similar to Pickett, you realized the way to build the program is to start younger.
Correct.
Now, had you started coaching Blue Claws at that point?
No. So that's what's weird.
Really?
No.
I thought it was Blue Claws were first.
It was exactly at the same time.
Okay.
Exactly at the same time. As I got that job, Jason Thomas, who you know really well, was at Oakleaf. My nephew was 7 or 8 or something like that. He goes, man, if you're going to get into baseball, why don't you come help us, coach this travel
Coach
team?
your nephew.
And I had no clue what travel baseball was. I mean, I thought I really didn't know what high school baseball was like, but travel baseball, I had no clue. So I was like, all right, yeah, I'll come out there. I'm thinking this is going to be pretty laid back. And to be honest with you, I needed the experience. I needed to just coach a lot of games, and just to try to learn the craft of becoming a head coach. So that was the main reason I took it is, they play a lot, So now I can coach on the weekends. I'm coaching during the week, and, I can,
catching up for that decade you took off.
Yeah, of not being around the game and stuff like that. So that's what I did. And lo and behold, 5-star is starting, and I'm butting heads with Josh Baker on the other side of the field and stuff like that. And, so yeah, it was one of those weird starts of getting into, high school baseball.
And looking back now, that helped you as much as the assistant coaching at the high school level?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, probably more so because I was running it, number one. Before, I was a pitching coach. I stayed down in the bullpen, maybe did a mound visit, but I didn't write practice plans. I wasn't, trying to generate offense and any of that kind of stuff. So probably because I was coaching games in the fall that first year with that Oakleaf travel team before I'd even coached a high school baseball game. So that was probably more beneficial. And then you're playing so many games. I mean, we'd play like 60, 70 games in a season, things like that. So you can take that was a 3 years of varsity season. And they're smaller, but it's very competitive games. I mean, it's, and it's life or death every Sunday afternoon for the most part for those families and those kids. And so that's what I started doing and trying to figure out how to build that team. And, and then you're playing like teams from all over the country and South Florida. Very talented team. I mean, that some of the players that we coached against back then, it's just kind of crazy.
You've seen them now on, in drafts and on, power forward rosters and playing and competing. And what I really liked about those teams that we had was our players were talented enough where we could try things as a coach.
Right.
We could try advanced things, and especially helped you, right, at the high school level. You could try something really advanced with that 10, 11-year-old group and see, okay, I can take this to the high school level. Yeah,
no, absolutely. And so they kind of learned everything I was going to try to do with the high school team.
Right.
Like, all right, well, let's just try it on these 9-year-olds and these 10-year-olds. But yeah, it was high. I mean, I would say this, and I say this to everybody, like those 9 and 10-year-old teams, the players themselves were more knowledgeable about the game than I was, even when I was in college. Like the things that we were teaching them, I didn't learn that back in the the 80s in high school baseball and things like that. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
And they were learning those type of things and put in a system. And then I was very fortunate with that team. A lot of those players I coached, all the way until the last one graduated last year. The last of that group that I started coaching, I think when they were 8 or 9 years old, a lot of those ended up being at St. John's, got to coach them all the way through travel baseball, and then got to coach them in high school, So that was probably the biggest advantage we had at St. John's is, man, I had 5 or 6 coaches on the field. They knew exactly what this situation, this is what we do. This is what he wants. What he wants to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, that's incredible. And actually, one of those guys that graduated last year went off this weekend. Little 4-hit game in his first start, Kyle Bolston.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually pretty cool. On Saturday, I had a really enjoyable just watching all the different guys. But yeah, Kyle Bolston didn't start Friday. He's down at FAU, got the start on Saturday and went 4 for 5, 2 doubles. I think his first at bat, he hit one off the wall, but had 2 doubles, 4 RBIs. Then they don't start him on Sunday. I'm like, how do you not start?
Right. That was already pre-scripted, obviously.
Yeah, right, yeah, get everybody in. But then they put him in. Then he had 2 more hits, yesterday. So he had a great weekend.
I know this is cliche and everybody says it, but even a better kid than he is player.
Yeah, whenever the scouts would come around, that was kind of my generic answer. Like they don't really ask us about what type of skill set because they can evaluate that. But he was getting scouted last year, and I would say he's the type of guy you would want to marry your daughter. I mean, he's just one of those type of kids. Great kid.
Absolutely.
Now you want him to be on your team versus the other team, but great kid.
Yeah, but most of those players that way, right? I mean,
absolutely.
like I coached Jackson Roper and Sean Ashenfelder,
right?
And you don't like them if you're in the other dugout,
right?
And they're in the other stands.
Yeah.
Those are guys you want to go to battle with.
Yeah, but just a genuine player, lights up the room with a smile, things like that. So it was very nice to see him have success in opening weekend.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so travel ball's going on at the same time, but you take over the St. John's program. That let's be honest, it was not a successful program. I mean,
right? Yeah.
I mean, so you Coach Hilliard did a good job for what he had, but you want to take it to the. I mean, he did what it was meant to be.
Right.
You want to take it to the next level. From facilities you've had to change to getting in better players to everything that you've done there. Where did you start?
So, we had to embrace go young. I mean, so I got hired, and I think a lot of the returners, or 2 of the returners that would have been starters, they left. They're like, we're transferring out. So they went to other schools. So I didn't have any seniors. I had that first year, there was no senior class. So we were really young. And I did have some, 9th, 10th graders and things like that. But one advantage I quickly learned that I had was we've got middle school kids on campus, and I can play those kids at an early age. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of adopted the rule, if the young guy is as good as the older player, he's going to play, because I can coach that kid for the next 4, 5, 6 years. What's his future going to be like? So we kind of really embraced that. So had Jack Hodges, who started as a 7th grader that year. And, that was kind of how we started building it. That was the attraction. Where could you go and play high school baseball as a middle schooler? Is kind of the word that got out there, I think, as some of the players that showed up and like, well, we can go over there and we're going to get to play. Then we started, I don't care how bad we are, I want you to see what good baseball's like. So anybody who will schedule us, we're going to play them. If you get beat in baseball, it's not like when you play football. Football, people can get hurt if you're mismatched. In baseball, you're just done a lot faster. The game is over really quick. And so we played some of those games. My AD, John Scrumlow, beat me, I think, 21-4, 21-5 in my second year. And so it's, we just started playing. Anybody who would play us. We started taking games and then dropping some of the lower level, probably the teams that were at our level, we started dropping them, and then started telling our kids and trying to get our kids to understand what it took to win at that level, and what separates you from those programs, and where we are currently at. Right. And that was it.
And that's what I love. That's what I wanted you to kind of tell that story, because a lot of people think, oh, Tom was a travel ball guy, then he brought his travel ball kids to St. John. No. You built the program way before those kids came close to stepping on campus.
Right, yeah. No, we didn't have any of those guys. They probably came 2-3 years later. I mean, they were just really young. They were 9 and 10 years old. So it was several years later that they came. Now, we ended up having some 7th graders and 8th graders that were pretty good baseball players, and that started working their way up through it. And then probably the 4th year, it seemed like it, all right, now it's starting to – we're playing those teams. And then we didn't have to win. We just had to be competitive. That's all we had to do. We just had, and we didn't win. We played an Oakleaf team that had Maloney on that team, and we almost beat them one year. And we had Atlantic Coast that we played, and they had some players that were pretty good back then, and we took them all the way to the 7th inning. Then we were really competitive with Bishop Kenny a game. So we were getting close, and we weren't winning those games, but people were starting to serve notice. Like, man, this team's, they're playing a lot of 7th and 8th graders against our 11th and 12th graders. So that was kind of the key in that.
So what was the moment when you said, we're on to something? We're headed in the right direction. I think we're going to be there maybe even sooner than I expected.
I don't know about a moment. I mean, every time I think there'd be the moment, NFC is kind of like the powerhouse in my classification in my region. Mike Posey, Hall of Fame coach, does an amazing job. I mean, they've had draft picks, and back then they were the big gorilla in our region. And so I had a group that was that you would know pretty well. So Jack Hodges was now in high school, but I had a group of his younger brother, Brad Hodges, who would have played as a fifth grader, to be honest with you. So that first year, he was in the fifth grade, and he was good enough to be on the varsity team, but he wasn't eligible to play. We tried everything. Like, is there any petition we can do? He was that good, and you could see it. But so no, that group is now eighth graders. So that group consists of Brad Hodges, Finn Howe, Jordan Taylor, Max Williams, Tanner Zellum, and Hunter Russell. Those are all on the same team.
I didn't realize Max was at St. John's.
All on the same team, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so so now I'm looking at a group of middle schoolers, and every one of these guys is a D1 player, is what I'm thinking back then. Like, if we can hold this team together, we're going to go win 3 or 4 state titles. And we got pretty close. We went farther in the playoffs with the middle school guys. Well, what happens? You've got that group of guys. It's hard to hold on to everybody. Some guys leave. Max ended up going over to Ridgeview, then later to Clay. Tanner left and went to Bowles to play football and baseball. Hunter Russell leaves. And so what I thought, man, we're really close. You lose 3 D1, possible guys. So it's kind of like, all right, what are we going to do? We just went back to work. We still had a really good group. And those guys just worked really, really. I mean, that's what we kind of told them is, if you're going to play as a middle schooler, you got to live in the weight room. You've got to really get after it. And so that was kind of, we were beating NFC that year 4-1, I think, after the third inning. And it's like, man, we might shock the world here. We might win this game.
That region final?
That was a regional semifinal.
Okay.
Regional semifinal. And they ended up losing in the state championship game, but I mean, it was a loaded team that we were going toe to toe with. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, where is the ceiling going to be in 2-3 years with these guys? If they can do this as middle schoolers, and that's when I started thinking, okay, we're doing it the right way. Let's the guys who want to be here, we're gonna, I'm gonna pour everything I have into them. That started, the younger guys, now my travel guys. Probably a handful of those guys who had showed up. My nephews had now come on campus, and they were younger than that group, and so that was starting to, we're starting to get players. You're a lot better coach when you got some really good players that start.
And you're getting enough players where they can compete with each other during practice,
right? Yeah.
And build that confidence and build that strength.
No, absolutely.
All right, so you lose to them in the region semis, right? Next year, coming back, loaded roster, Brad Hodges on the mound. And when do you take that? When do you get past NFC?
So they beat us the next year. So now the next year, we think we have the plan to beat them. I can't think of the guy's name. He ended up going to Florida State. They had a starter, Walker. Brandon Walker was their big righty, ran it up to about 97, something like that. And we had hit him. We had knocked him out of the game the year before. So now we've got the likes of Connor Moore has shown up now, who ended up committing to Florida State, who now had an unbelievable weekend for UNF this past weekend. He's there. James Oman, some of those guys are starting to show up on top of the other players. And it's like, all right, we got a chance. Brad's going to be like a freshman throwing against these guys, and Finn Howe. And those two, pitched a lot as freshmen and were really, really good. And they just beat us like a drum. They came over to our place, after we had gone toe-to-toe with them. And, I mean, Walker was a different kid his senior year. Like, now he can land a breaking ball. And, like, our whole game plan of ambush and fastballs, it doesn't work. And, I mean, I think they scored 14, 15 runs on us or something like that. And it's, you wish them well and you're moving on. But that's the farthest we'd gone. We'd gone from regional semifinals to now we're in the regional finals. Next year is going to be our year. They lost a bunch. Well, then it's the COVID year. And so now COVID happens, and we finished that year. We are the highest ranked team of all classifications in the state of Florida.
Right.
Everything. I mean, we were really, really good that year.
With a tough schedule.
With a brutal schedule. We started playing everybody. At this point, It's pretty. I mean, I'll go anywhere. We're going to play anybody.
Because you're now to the point where not a lot of people locally want to play you anymore.
We hadn't quite yet. We're probably a year away from that.
Gotcha.
22 is probably when that happens. But so we were just playing anybody who was really good, is what I was saying. Like if you weren't very talented, then yeah, it was probably a game I don't want to play either. You don't want to play. But I mean, there's a lot of really good local teams that were. I mean, we couldn't beat Clay. I mean, Clay was beating the brakes off of us every year. We're playing them, so we're playing all the big schools in locally. But we were also taking on, IMG Academy. I'd say, yeah, let's go play them. What's the worst can happen? I mean, we're going to lose. Well, we're supposed to lose that game. If we, so we're playing teams like that. COVID happens and I'm just devastated, because that to me is that we're going to go to the Final Four. I mean, that we're going to get there. I don't know if we can win it all, but I mean, we look like we're going to line up in the regional. We're going to be, NFC was down. That whole group he had with his son, with Major Posey and all those guys, they're all gone. And this looks like it's going to set up for us. And then you get the gut punch of COVID.
Season's canceled.
Yeah. So we come into 21 and we are pretty hungry at this point now. It's like, okay, that got taken from us. We're going. Like this is our year.
Because the bulk of that group was back.
They're all back. Yeah. We lost Jack Hodges. That's the one guy. And so that was that had hurt. A kid who had been there. He's the only senior that year of the COVID year. And I think we're going to get to the Final Four. This is good. This is how the script should be written. A kid who's here as a 7th grader, played for me as a 7th grader that, I've invested so much in, and he's trusted me so much. And he's going to get rewarded by seeing this program reach the pinnacle.
Right.
So he's the one we lose in that year. But everybody else is back. And they're all a year older, and they've got perspective now of this. You're not promised anything. Like you're not promised tomorrow, and you just lost a whole season last year. And so we finally got over the hump. We got to the Final Four, and I think we were just happy to get there.
Right.
All right, we finally got
it. We made it. Yeah,
we made it.
Happens.
I think this is year 7 for me at this point now, that we finally got there, and we win the first game. It's like, man, that's all right. I think we beat Westminster in the first game, and, so now we're going to go play the state championship game. And to be honest with you, we're favored in that game. When you looked at it, it's like, yeah, we're playing a team called Out the Door. They had pulled a couple upsets to get there, and we still have Brad to throw in the state championship game. And, I kind of managed it just, we're going to score some runs early. We had plenty of opportunities. I ran a couple safety squeezes just to push some runs across the board. And then we just had the one bad inning, that happens in baseball. And we end up losing that game 5-3. And the whole time I'm thinking, if we score 3 runs, they're not getting to 5 off of Brad. And I still had Jordan Taylor could come in relief and things like that. And so we lost that game, and you kind of start thinking, man, that's, we'll get back. Now it's going to start, every year is going to happen. We're going to even be better in 22. That's Brad and Jordan and Finn. That's their senior year. We lost some guys like Connor Moore and Luke Shanahan and James Oman, who all are playing D1 baseball right now. But we got a really good group. I've got that next group behind them of Kyle Boylston and Jacob Thomas, and that group, Trevor Bradley, they're behind that group, and they're going to, they've been with me since they were 9. So 22, and that's our best team. 22 is our best team, hands down. We get the invite to go to Cary. We play up there. We get to the title game in Cary that year. Lose to Stoneman Douglas in that game, in a really competitive game. They win the national championship, and we go toe-to-toe with them for 7 innings.
And there's only about, 2,500 student difference in enrollment between the two of y'all?
Yeah, probably more than that. We got 215 kids in our.
And they're probably over 3,000.
Right. Yeah. So it's a lot. So I mean, we beat Huntington Beach. Jacob Thomas that year was he would have been a junior, and throws a shutout against them. So that was pretty cool. So you're playing those type of teams, and we're playing. We took Spruce Creek, they were loaded. That was Neely's senior year. So he had called me, and they had lost a game on a rainout. I had lost a game. He goes, "Can you play us tomorrow?" I was like, "Yeah, we'll come down there." And that's kind of our mindset. We'll play anybody, anywhere. Loaded up the bus the next day and went down there, and we beat Neely, his senior year. So that was that type of team. We get all the way, and we're just rolling. I mean, we're beating we're steamrolling teams. And we get all the way to the regional final. NFC is down. Like, they're not the same team. They come in and they throw a lefty throwing about 71 to 73 miles an hour, just flipping it up there at our park, which is really hard to do because we have the shortest porch.
Kryptonite for a good team.
Yeah, and we get pop up. And we're going to get to them. And they end up upsetting us, and it's just, oh boy, we might not get back there. We might not. I mean, that was a team that should win it all, and we just got beat. Got upset. Pretty big upset. For us.
Yeah.
So that was one of those. I start questioning. Man, am I ever going to finish? I didn't finish it off with that group that I'd had when they were 7th graders here. Am I going to finish this thing off with the final thing of winning a state championship?
Well, we don't want to have a spoiler, so we'll get into the next 2 seasons after the break here. We're going to take a quick break. More with Coach Lucas when we return on After the Game.
Baker Sports is local sports. Uniforms from Pop Warner and Little League to travel ball, high school, and college. They make you look good. They help you play good. Baker Sports has been helping families make memories that will last a lifetime with their Baker's Buckets. We've got a lot of these filled with baseballs and softballs in the garage. I've been throwing batting practice to Ty and Kaylee for years, and also sit on the Baker's Bucket, catching Kaylee while she practices her pitching. Yeah! Baker Sports is homegrown, and a lot of employees that used to play on local ball fields now work for Baker Sports, now helping you look good, play good, and make memories of your own. Visit Bakersport.com to see what Baker Sports can do for you. Custom apparel, Nike, Under Armour, Adidas, embroidery, screen printing, and more. Baker Sports is local sports. From Jacksonville to anywhere in the Southeast. Bakersport.com.
Here on Spring Sports Media Day on Action Sports Jax.
It's an opportunity, an education beyond the classroom and the sports arena. Life skills, testing skills, social skills. It's called High School 912, a program focused on maximizing the growth of students in academics, sports, and life. And here's your chance to get involved. If you're a local business, or if you just want to make a donation to help support programs like ACT and SAT boot camps, career days, Leadership Academy, Financial Literacy Academy, and so much more.
Another Nice High School Panther, Jack Cole.
High School 912 supports and hosts high school sporting events and several media days throughout the year. For more information on how you can get involved, visit jaxhighschool912.com.
In high school coaching, a lot of the good stories come after the game. Sit back, watch, and listen to the journeys to the sideline and the stories of high school coaches. After the Game, presented by Baker Sports and High School 912.
Welcome back to After the Game. More here with Coach Lucas. All right, Coach. The first group you had, 7th graders, they just graduated, upset loss in the region finals at home. Now we're coming back with 23, and it's kind of time for that group that you'd been coaching since they were 8 or 9 to be leaders and take over.
Yeah, so that was the group I had, and that was my boys. I mean, that really was.
Right.
And they like to pick on the 22 class, and I like to pick on the 22 class because we had something on that group that we kept holding over their head. We had won Cooperstown, and they didn't. And so we kept saying we were the best 12U or we were the best 11U team, and Brad would lose his mind anytime we started talking about 12U baseball, and he'd rattle off all the kids that were on his 12U team. And so now I've got that group, so.
And in fairness to that group, they had played anybody and everybody from the time they were 10 on. Right.
My group or
your group?
Yeah,
your group. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And Brad's group probably played great travel baseball, but not to the level that your team or my team did following them.
Yeah, probably. I mean, but when you look at the rosters, you're like, man, they probably.
Yeah, they were loaded.
Yeah, hopefully Brad doesn't see this, but they were pretty loaded. But it's my group, So now I've got Jeffrey Henry, Trevor Bradley, Kyle Boylston, Jacob Thomas, George Gilson. All those guys, are now. Coming up, and it's their team. Brad, Finn, Jordan, they're gone. And I think there's no expectations now. I think everybody thought that's what we were. And Brad had just, probably the best high school season I had ever coached and witnessed.
Right.
You know, we came in second to winning the Mr. Baseball in the state of Florida. You know, I think he finished that year 10-0, hit like 12 home runs, was like Superman. So he's gone. Well, now St. John's is going to fall back. I mean, that's what everybody said. We weren't really ranked at all. So we were kind of, I got to embrace, you know, I've been the powerhouse, been the favorite. Now we're back to being the underdog. But these are my guys, and they know how I want to play. Like, we're going to play it a different way. We don't have the power of the Jordan and Brad and Finn and stuff like that. And we kind of embraced that. And that team just took on their own identity, wore that kind of, you know, chip on their sleeve, and, you know, they played as a team. That was the closest bonded team I'd ever been around. They literally started a tradition, like they went and ate every meal together. I mean, they during the season, they were together 24/7, it seemed like. And so we ended up, you know, we kind of move on, and, you know, we're kind of doing our thing, and man, we're now the number 1 seed in the region, and man, could they possibly do this? And we get all the way to the state championship game, and now we're going to play Lakeland Christian, really good program, probably not favored, and we give up 5 runs in the first inning. It's like gut punch city, you know. And we battle back though. I mean, we battle back and ended up getting the tying run to the plate in the 7th inning. But, you know, I've got to say goodbye to, you know, some guys that I, you know, been around for a really long time. We lost half of that team were seniors, and, you know, like the Cody Denaults and George Gilsons were juniors. So now they're going to be coming back. But Jacob Thomas, that I'd coached since he was 8, my nephew, you know, he's now gone. And so that was another heartbreak. You know, man, now we've been here, you know, twice, can't get over the hump. You know, we keep losing these state championship games. It's kind of another rebuild for us. What are we going to do? And, you know, Jacob, Gavin, Bradley, they had dominated the innings, you know, so now we have nobody who'd really pitched going into 24. But we've got some good pieces, you know, we've got some really good pieces. And we had a kid named Austin Stratman who ended up coming over his freshman year. He was a lefty that we, you know, to me, we developed. He's a senior this year. He was going to have to take a big step. Then we had a kid who was a lifer. At St. John's, we got these lifer St. John's kids. Jack Insel was his name. And he actually threw a 1-hitter in the playoff game, but it was against a lower level team. But he was one of those kids. Now he's going to be a senior that you're thinking, you know, we'll see. You know, you know, he's been around us, you know, since he was a middle school. He's earned a shot, you know, and he actually played for Boswell in the summer, and I told him, I was like, you know, he needs to get some innings because he's going to get a lot of innings from me next year. And so he had a really good summer. So we go into 24, kind of unproven on the pitching side, but we think we got a really good lineup. You know, we've got Colt Myers comes over, Kyle Boylston looks like he's now becoming a guy, Seth Alford, who's at UNF, George Gilson. You know, I challenged him. He was like you know, George, he was a little guy. You know, he was like a 130-pound kid as a 10th grader, and, you know, trying to play at our level. And it's like, you got to get to 200 pounds. Like that's your goal for your senior year. You need to get to 200 pounds. And he just made it. You know, I think he's like 204, 205 now. He took that next leap, you know, his senior year. I mean, he went off. And so lineup-wise, we look pretty good. It's can we maintain it on the pitching side? We go to Cary. We get doors beat off in Cary. I mean, we play Huntington Beach the first game and get embarrassed.
So they remember 22?
They remember 22. Yeah, they remember 22. They beat us really bad. We go 1-3 up there. We've kind of got a little bit of turmoil, you know, like, man, we're not as good as everybody thinks we are kind of stuff. And then we come back and just let's go to work. You know, we've got the talent. We can do this. And so we ended up losing the district. We hadn't lost district in probably 6-7 years. St. Joe's upsets us 1-0 in the districts. We end up getting the bases loaded, no outs in the 7th inning. You're like, all right, we're fixing to win this thing, and they get out of it, and we don't score. So we lose district, have to watch them celebrate, and that was kind of like the best thing that could happen. You know, like to watch them celebrate something that group thought, you know, this is going to be, you know, our year. We're just going to, you know, go win a state championship easily. And you keep telling groups after groups, like, guys, I've had way better teams than you, and we lose. There's always adversity you face, and you got to overcome that. You got to figure out different ways to play. Sometimes the ball doesn't bounce your way. So that was kind of the wake-up call. Like, guys, this can get taken away from you. And So now we get into the playoffs, and we find ourselves, we're losing to UC. We end up coming back and winning that game. We get to the regional championship, and a familiar foe is going to come in, and that's going to be NFC. And he's got the lefty that had upset us in 22. He's got him, and he's a senior, and he's a lot better now. Now he's in the mid-80s, but he's still got that deadly changeup that he can throw. And I tell him, he's throwing this guy. And you're not going to see 95. Stop complaining about it. He's going to change up you to death. And we're losing the game. They hit 5 home runs in the regional championship at my park. Usually we're the team that hits them. Right. Everybody complains about our fence and things like that. We have 0 home runs, and NFC has 5. And we're losing that game in the 7th inning. We're down a run going to the 7th inning, but we've got leadoff Kyle Boylston. Leadoff, home run, we're tied. They pitch around Cole. He ends up drawing a walk. Next pitch, George Gilson hits one out. We walk it off. Yeah, walk it off. So we're going to the Final Four.
And by the way, couldn't be a better guy to walk it off. I mean, like you talked about, it was a 130-pounder, worked his butt off. Really, just kind of a guy until his senior year.
Yeah, no, his mother got real frustrated because she's seeing all the success that's happening with some of the St. John's players and committing, and he's not. And I was like, well, he's just got to. He needs to get more physical. Where he plays, he has got to hit home runs basically to get an offer, and just trust the process. He's putting the work in. It's going to pay off. It just might come later than it's going to come for somebody like Kyle, who's crazy athletic and things like that. But yeah, great kid. Great kid, and that was his team last year. He kind of was the enforcer to the players when they got out of line. He was the guy as far as, here's the standard of what we do. So he walks that off. We go to the Final Four, and we're cruising. We're cruising in that game, but we're leaving some runs on the bases that we need to capitalize. But we got a 2-run lead. We're going to the 7th inning. We're bringing in Trevor Bradley, who was perfect the year before and saves. This game's over. Well, one thing happens, the next thing happens. All right, well, we got 2 outs. They got 2 guys on. We're still okay here. And a kid that I'd coached a lot, Ashton Cox, his name, is playing little lefty. He played for Kangaroo Court all these years. When I was coaching a lot of travel baseball, he was one of these kids. We tell him to go no doubles. George still doesn't protect the line down the right field line, and he laces a ball that gets by George, goes into the corner, and they tie the game. You're like, you got to be kidding me.
Here we go again.
Here we go again. Well, we get Kyle's up. We got some guys coming along. They ended up taking the lead on us in that inning. So now we're losing. Suddenly you've been cruising, you're losing. We got 2 outs. Kyle gets up. They should be in no doubles. They're not. He burns them on a ball that gets over their head. Then Colt gets on. George comes up and does what he does again. He hits one to the wall. We walk it off and win that game by 1 run. And so, we've gone 2 walk-offs.
Right.
And that night I'm talking to my wife. I was like, man, sometimes I see these teams, they come down here and the team just lays an egg. The other team, walks the house. Their pitcher can't throw strikes. They make a bunch of errors. I've been down here. I've lost 2 of these. Man, I'm not wishing ill will on anybody, but can we just have an easy one?
I'm due. Yeah.
I'm due. Can I just have an easy one? But we got Miami Christian, and they are, I think they had won 5 state titles, and they're really, really good last year. And so I'm not expecting it to be easy. But again, we're winning the game. We're kind of cruising. Austin Stratman is pitching, phenomenal in the game against a loaded lineup. And then again, we get to the 7th inning, and they score 2 runs to tie us up to send us to the 8th. We had a chance to win that game in the bottom of the 7th. We got the winning run. Seth Alford on 3rd with Cody Denault, one of my guys, at the plate, and he strikes out. It's like, man, what's going on here? So we go to the 8th inning, and I'm out of pitching. We end up running out a freshman, Gavin Coffey, out to the mound, and he does amazing. Then they had kind of made a mistake. They had kind of pinch hit for their catcher and had to put in a backup catcher, and he had a lot of trouble. So we ended up winning that game in the bottom of the 8th inning on a pass ball. Not the way I didn't envision that.
Ball for the state title.
Yeah, not the way you envision that, but that was how the story got written.
Yeah. So the improbable team. Yeah. Looking back from, let's say, 21 on, the least talented?
I mean,
yeah, I just hate to say that.
Yeah,
least likely.
Least likely.
Yeah.
You know, 23 was. That team exceeded everybody's expectations because they just didn't have the D1 commits and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you weren't expecting it. You know, is what I said. And then to walk off the final 3 games. You know, that was to walk off the regional final, to walk off the Final Four game, and then to walk off the state championship game. You know, that team was a very tough, gritty team, and that's what helped them. Is it really didn't matter, you know, what they were down. You were going to get their best shot.
And like you said, now you graduated all your boys you had since they were 8 or 9. Like the last 3 or 4 of them are gone.
Yeah.
So now you're more into high school coach.
It's a lot harder.
Coach role.
It's a lot harder. Like stuff that, you know, Jeffrey Henry was kind of like my right-hand guy that would know what was going on. He's gone. You know, Jacob, I mean, they knew everything. Now it's okay. Well, it's a whole new crop there. You know, we've had a lot of these guys. You know, they played middle school baseball and they've come up through the system. It's like, okay, you know, this is kind of that 23 model of, you know, we think we do a really good job of developing kids. You know, kids that generally come here to St. John's that want to play baseball, they're really serious about baseball. They're gonna work really hard. It's our job to develop them, and that's the group we have right now. Is we got a lot of guys that we've coached for a really long time, and now it's your moment. You know, Brad Hodges isn't coming through the door. Jacob Thomas and Seth Alford, they're gone. It's your time.
And I think in today's age and climate and the way travel baseball has impacted high school baseball, and when you got a high school transfer portal. I mean, let's just be honest, it exists. I think you have done a really good job of having some guys come in, but keeping the bulk of the team guys that have been there.
Yeah, and
you keep your core.
Yeah, we've kept our core. The school, I mean, we are a very high academic standard school for number one. So they police that pretty good. You know, they're not going to let me bring in 10 homeschool kids and change over the whole roster. We get 4 homeschool kids. That's what we get. You know, so we can have no more than that. So you have to build within. You can supplement, but we turn away. Like people, I mean, and I hear it, you know, all through the community of, you know, they're just loading up or they're doing the recruiting and all this. And I'm like, I wish they knew the kids who tried to come here who get turned away, you know, because if you think we've been good, just imagine the ones like if we could take anybody, like how good we would have been. So yeah, we have to kind of build, you know, on that. And we take pride, like our starting first baseman. I mean, Gibby Gillian this year, he's been at St. John's forever. We've got a lot of guys like that, you know, that have, you know, Hunter Rogers, he came over his 7th grade year, you know, so those guys, it's their team this year. So Preston Cole, he played as a middle schooler at St. John's. These are the type of guys that now it's their team.
Yeah. So along the same lines, what is the state of baseball in the greater North Florida area right now?
As far as the high school, yeah, it's loaded. I mean, it really is. Like just looking at the teams that are out there, we might not have the Aiden King or, you know, somebody that talented this year. Carnes last year, you know, we've had some of these guys that are possible first, but the level of play, I mean, number one, the level of coaching in Northeast Florida. I mean, there are some really, really good programs that are, you look at being good consistently year after year after year. You know, in our area, Clay. Then you got King at Creekside. Then you've got Tommy Edwards and Mike Boswell, Tommy Boss at Providence, Murphy at Trinity. You know, that level, they're good every year. You know, and you know, so that's not, you know, loading up with 1 or 2 kids. So to me, you know, and then what Trinity has this year, I mean, it's probably better than what our 22 team was. You know, I think they're ranked number 1 in the state, number 3 or 4 in the country or something like that. But I mean, there's every year or every game, you're going to see some matchups where you could be shocked because there's a lot of parity right now, and it's good, like it's high quality parity.
Well, and that's what bothers me when you hear, oh, travel ball's ruined high school baseball. Travel ball has made high school baseball 100 times better than it was, especially in this area.
No, wait. I mean, the level of what these kids see in travel baseball, like just the number of games, then the high level of games. Like velo, like when we saw 90 miles an hour, like maybe 2 times in high school. Like you can remember that.
Oh, yeah.
It's that 22 team, we saw 21 pitchers 90 miles an hour or higher. Like, but it doesn't scare, like they're going to hit that. Like for the most part, just because in travel baseball, they see that, you know, every weekend there's somebody coming out and they're doing that stuff. So the level of play, but it has elevated that. It hasn't hurt.
They're not overwhelmed by talent, and they're not overwhelmed by circumstance either.
No.
They've played in front of big crowds and meaningful games with, like you said, intensity since they were 9 years old.
No, yeah. Now it's changed some things. Like, do I like the way that they talk and some of those shenanigans and stuff? Like, no, I would say that probably has come from the travel baseball and the social media and the clicks and likes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That you get to see. But the level of play of baseball is higher, and I would contribute that to the showcase and travel baseball.
Yeah, and I would say this area, when you look at from the 24s through the 27s, I don't know that there's a better area in the country from a talent standpoint.
No, I 100% agree. I mean, if you are available to go watch high school baseball in our area, I mean, you're going to be impressed. There are so many high level dudes in our area. It's pretty scary, which is good. I mean, it's awesome to see.
Yeah, I mean, just this weekend we're talking about freshmen that played for either you or I growing up. We talked about Kyle goes 4 for 5. Chase Fralick gets his first start at Auburn, goes 3 for 5 with a bomb and a double. Miles Bailey starts at Florida State, goes 3 for 5 with a double. Hunter Carnes had a home, or he went off top of the wall for a double. I mean, it's just on and on and on with these guys making impacts at the college level from day one.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 Florida State guys in the start. They're starting 9 on opening day. There's 3 Northeast Florida guys in the starting lineup.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's been very fortunate to be able to see a lot of those guys and get to sit back and kind of watch those guys succeed at the next level.
Yeah.
It's at every level, ACC, SEC. Mid-majors across the board, there's Northeast Florida products.
And the 26 class has the potential to be the best class to ever come through Jacksonville.
It's quite possibly.
with what Murphy has and then Bowles has and you have and Providence and Episcopal. I mean, and, you got Clay running guys out there. I mean, it's really impressive that just the level of play.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, the 27s, like today, we're going to go play Lincoln. They got the number 1 player in the class in Chase Fuller that I coached for a number of years in travel baseball. Mm-hmm. My shortstop is, one of the higher ranked kids. He's ranked in the top 10.
Right.
Preston Cole. So those 2 guys they'll go, against each other today. And so you see those kind of matchups quite a bit, That's pretty cool.
So what's next for you? Like, where are you at? Are you still enjoying the travel ball? I know you're not doing it on the small field anymore. You've moved to the big field, which is more for recruiting purposes of getting kids to college. Are you still enjoying the summer part? Are you still enjoying the high school piece? What's next for you?
I'm enjoying the high school piece a lot. I mean, so I enjoy that a lot. I don't enjoy the travel necessarily, the showcase summer circuit as much. I'm going back on it again this year, but that to me is a service for my guys.
Right.
It's to get them committed and get them opportunities to go play. So that helps me with relationships with college coaches and to be able to get my guys out and things like that. So that's kind of a necessary part of what I do, is kind of how I view it. Yeah. But I don't know what the next is. I mean, I wanted to ride off. Some people thought I was going to ride off into the sunset last year, but you're kind of I live 1 mile from St. John's.
Right.
I've got a pretty easy life. I don't know what I would do with all my free time.
Good support, John.
Oh, John Scrumley is awesome. Baseball guy, as an athletic director, the school is always
Your
supportive.
Headmaster's a former coach.
Yeah, I mean, so they get the athletics component of it. We've changed a lot, like the facilities, like you mentioned earlier. And so, we'll see. We'll see, how many more years I've got. But every year there's a new challenge. You got a new team. And so right now it's kind of, all right, we've got our work cut out this year. Like, this is going to be one of those tougher years for us, as far as we've got 6 of our 9 in the lineup are new guys. Mm-hmm. And so, you kind of enjoy the piece of, can we coach them up? We're not where we need to be right now, but I don't need to be. I need to be there by the end of the year. And so I really enjoy that of what, because that's when people kind of take notice, of that, what we talk about, that consistency piece. Like this year's team, when you look at it, it's down from the last 6-7 years, but I think we can still play at the St. John's, standard. Right.
And you have, like you mentioned, you have some core pieces to build around. I mean, Hunter Rogers is one of my favorite players I've ever coached in my life. I don't think you could find a better leader.
No, he's a great human being. Would have started as an 8th grader, catching Brad Hodges when he was in the 8th grade, and he's our first ever junior captain. And I got Austin Stratman, a kid that I love. Lefty that's committed to UNF. Just comes from a great family, faced adversity. His dad got struck by electricity, the JEA last year during the regional final.
Yeah, I was going to say
during the regional
game.
final, and then went and did what he did in the state championship game. So we've got some guys that I think are pretty tough guys. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, and that's what this is about. Like it's not the winning and the losing, and it's really not even the state championships. And Pickett tried to tell me that. I really tried to do everything he did, and he kept telling me, like, you're going to win one, and it just goes on your wall, and you want another one. It really comes down to the relationships. I mean, that's what it comes back to. I was at UNF on Saturday, and getting to see my boys, and getting a picture, and kind of cheering them on, hoping Jacob Thomas is going to get a start, in the next couple weeks, for UNF, and getting to watch things like that. That it's really about those relationships.
Yeah, this weekend was a lot of fun for me as well. Well, I told you it would go fast. It flies by this show. But before I let you go, I always ask every coach who comes on the show, all right, one piece of advice that right now that you would give a young Coach Lucas or a coach just starting out.
So, and to me, this is the best trait for young coaches, is to ask questions of, whoever you coach against. I would seek advice from guys that are well respected, but when you coach against guys, to me, those are the guys that I identify that I think are going to end up being really good coaches. The guys who tend to struggle are the ones who they're just a little too cocky, and they think they have all the answers. We don't. I'm still learning things right now. I'm going into my 11th year, and I mean that 22 season, or I think I went and met with Mike Boswell and picked his brain. I knew he had great teams, and I'm struggling to kind of push the right buttons. So anytime I'm around a young coach and he asks me questions, I take notes. Like, that's a guy I probably want to try to get at some point. If he's asking, and I ask him in game sometimes, and you don't want to do it in a way to offend somebody. Right. But what was your thinking? Like, why did you do this on a 2-2 count? And sometimes you get an answer like, man, that's a pretty cool way to do that and stuff like that. So that's my advice, is seek advice, from other coaches.
Awesome. Well, Coach, I appreciate everything. Appreciate your support over the years.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck this season. Bring home another one.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Coach.
Get local sports on demand with Action Sports Jax 24/7. All sports, all local, all the time. From the locker room to the field, the Jags, high school football, the Jacksonville Armada, and don't forget the Brent and Austin Show. They're all in on Trevor. Of course. Download the Action News Jax Now app, available wherever you stream or at actionnewsjax.com. TV, phone, laptop, desktop. Action Sports Jax 24/7. Jacksonville sports, all the time.